Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. Good week so far?
Yeah, because there hasn't been a game. I think, didn't Postecoglou say this in his last press conference? Someone said, have you had a much better week? I was like, what? Because we haven't lost. It was like, it does kind of feel like that. I think we all needed a bit of a recharge, and hopefully you've had it as well. And the listeners and viewers as well. So, but yeah, we're just kind of doing a bit of an extra pod, aren't we, to discuss and mop up some other little bits and pieces.
Yeah, we did say in Monday's pod we'd be back for another one towards the end of this week. This one's going to be slightly different as we're going to be looking at Tottenham's loan players and how they're doing so far. And I think you've said on the previous podcast, this is probably the best season to date in terms of the loan players going away and making an impact. And we'll start with someone who is grabbing the headlines right now, and he did that on Tuesday night with another goal, and that's Jamie Donley at Leyton Orient. I mean, what a strike that was away at Wrexham. I mean, there's always talk about Wrexham and this incredible journey they've been on under their owners, and a lot of people, including the media, want them to be promoted, but Jamie Donley might have just thrown a bit of a spanner in the works with a fantastic volley.
Yeah, I mean, do you watch the documentary?
I've never seen it.
No. It's good. It's good. It's obviously it's got the kind of Hollywood-esque side to it with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, but it's to be fair, it does a lot on the community side of it as well, which you don't always get on those sort of documentaries. But yes, that aside, a big kind of just another big night for Jamie Donley. I should stress what we're also doing with the loan players is it's not going to just be a straight kind of roundup of them. We're also going to maybe discuss whether they've got a future at Spurs as well, only in our very humble opinion as well. Well, not Guesties isn't that humble, mine is. Yeah, so Jamie's just been superb. I think a little bit like, how Jed Spence has kind of made it look ridiculous that Postecoglou wasn't using him earlier in the season. I feel like Jamie Donley is doing exactly that with Richie Wellens. There was this big kind of thing early in the season. He just wasn't getting game time. Almost looked like he was going to come back to Spurs at one point. It really wasn't working for him. And then something happened. Whichever side it was on, I'm sure the manager will say it was the player stepped up his efforts. And I'm sure, from the player's side of things, or certainly people around the player, they'll claim it was the other way around. But whatever happened, starting games and just making a huge impact. And it's not even just the ridiculous goals we've seen, some of the technique. I mean, the technique the other night, that's top tier technique. To take a volley down at that kind of control and put it into the bottom corner. And obviously we saw the goal that everyone wishes had been his against Man City in the Cup as well. And he's just got this remarkable kind of eye for a pass, for a shot, technique. I think the one thing that's been said about him maybe at a top level is just hasn't got that yard of pace that perhaps he needs. But I mean, Spurs more than anyone know, especially with someone like Teddy Sheringham, sometimes you can have that extra yard of pace in your head. And my hope is that that's where Jamie Donley's got it. I know it sounds weird, but hopefully people know what I mean. It's just that extra bit of anticipation and awareness and radar of what's going on in a game. So, yeah, with Jamie, he's just, I'll ask you straight off. Does he have a future at Spurs, a first-team future?
I think he does if he keeps progressing the way he is at the moment, but it might not be next season. I think the summer's going to be key for him, coming in, trying to make an impression during those summer friendlies, because, he played in quite a few of them ahead of this season, did well. But, there's going to be a number of players ahead of him in the pecking order. So if it comes to it, another season out on loan, probably this time in the Championship, just to, help his experience even more, because you've got to remember this is his first loan move away from the club. And it has been tough at times. I think it maybe was a case of tough love from Richie Wellens, and then Jamie maybe realised he needs to be doing more on the training pitch. And since he's come back in, which was pretty much end of November, start of December, he's been an undroppable, and he's played this huge role in their, rise from mid-table into the League One playoffs, and maybe could culminate with promotion to the Championship in the summer. It's I think he's done really well so far. I think it might be tough for him next season, but if he has a really strong pre-season, then he could be involved in the first team squad.
Yeah, I think the key is not to play him at left back. That's probably going to be quite important for his development, because the way he's playing, he can be the Madison Kulusevski alternative. You know, he's got that ability to play there, and contract till 2029. So, like you say, time's on his side. So I'd love to see him involved more next season. But if it means that a season in Championship, yeah, by all means, I don't think that's the worst thing either for him.
Yeah, Josh Keeley is another one who could maybe
Yep.
spend next season away on loan in the Championship's probably going to be the next destination for him. Did really well in the National League with Barnet last season. Stepped up to League One with Leyton Orient. The amount of clean sheets he's been keeping is ridiculous. Even scored a goal, didn't he, against Oldham in the cup? That just shows how well he's doing and the big impact he's made. I think with Josh, it's probably going to be a bit more difficult because there's only one position in the team up for grabs. Guillermo Vicario's number one. Antonin Kinski's come in and made an impression when he has played. So there's going to be limited opportunities there for him. I don't know with Josh, because I suppose you could maybe said a few years ago, Brandon Austin and Alfie Whiteman maybe would be the successor to Hugo Lloris, but that's not quite turned out like that. Alfie Whiteman's played 10 minutes in the first team for Spurs against Ludogorets, Brandon Austin 3 times. So it's difficult for the goalkeepers. I don't know. I'd probably say no for Josh. I hope that's not the case, but I'd probably be leaning more towards no than yes.
Sadly, I think I'm right on your side of things. I think he's an incredibly talented goalkeeper. Is it 13 clean sheets in 21 games? Something like that. It's just ridiculous. And he's going to be an excellent goalkeeper. I think probably a Premier League goalkeeper. I think he'll go that far. But Spurs have really got this set group of 3 goalkeepers now on long contracts. And you've got Luca Gunter as well, who we'll talk about. What I would do if I'm Spurs, and obviously I have no control over these things whatsoever, I would get him tied down to a long contract. I would get him out on loan, have him as one of those players who kind of is developing away from the club. I think with goalkeepers, you can kind of get away with a little bit more. We've seen quite a few over the years. Big clubs have had goalkeepers away from the club developing. And then at the worst, if you do feel a point comes when you have to kind of sell him for his own kind of career, you stick a big old or cheap buyback clause in there to bring him back, because I don't think currently there's the space for him, and I think not being club trained is not going to help at all his cause going forward. But I would still love to see him as a Spurs player at some point, or certainly a Spurs player getting minutes. But right now, it's tough to find a way through for him.
Maybe you do what Man City and Chelsea do with the young players when the stock's quite high, even though they've not played in the first team, sell them for big money. And so no, like a lot of fans of clubs have mentioned, like, oh, we should be doing this as a way of bringing money in. Maybe that's something to look at. But yeah, I think for Josh, probably another year out on loan, like we said, and then just go from there. Yang Min-hyuk then, 4 games into his QPR career, made a very promising start. Fair to say, was very good at home to Derby County last week in their 4-0 win. First start for the club, probably in a good position to start away at Portsmouth this weekend. I mean, we said it on the last podcast. There was Yang went to QPR. There's probably doubts over whether he could cope with the demands of the Championship, the physicality, but he's taken everything in his stride already. And I think QPR fans have been absolutely raving about him. I think I saw some online saying the other day, it's rubbish, Spurs, just sell him to us right now. So maybe Son's successor, possibly.
Maybe there's a lot of people queuing up to try and take that crown, I think, off Sonny. But I think with Yang, it's very early days. He has been battered and bruised in the Championship already. I've seen a few people have said that, but he stood up to that test, which is a major thing. You know, he could have shrunk away, but he hasn't. It's all culminated him getting his full debut the other day, getting a lovely assist, and yeah, it's very, very early days with him. But certainly he's got the ability. Spurs believe that. It might be that next season is another loan to continue that. But either way, there's a lot of talent there, and I think it's been a promising first. Probably just a few weeks or so, because it's difficult to kind of use the time at Spurs even before that. I know it was only another couple of weeks on top of that, but it's kind of almost a bit of an artificial environment. It's like a training ground environment, whereas he's properly being tested at QPR now. And we'll see what comes, but fingers crossed, a long career at Spurs ahead of him.
Yeah, I think he can have a future at Spurs. Just got to see how he does, and there's a number of players ahead of him in the pecking order. So maybe it is the case of another loan move for him next season. But that's only going to help both parties in terms of aiding his development. Another attacker now, Alfie Devine, who's at Westerlo in Belgium, currently out injured with a hamstring issue. There's also Luca Vuskovic, who will be becoming a Tottenham player from the summer.
We're not writing Luka Vuskovic off already, are we? Haven't even played yet.
I think it's fairly clear to see Luka Vuskovic has a big future ahead of him. Just going on how he did Hajduk Split, Radomiak Radom in Poland, and now Westerlo. This is what looks to be an incredible defender who has an eye for a goal. Scoring regular. I think he's one of the highest scorers for Westerlo this season. So that just shows what he's all about. And it's going to be interesting to see actually how much game time he gets next season. Hopefully there's going to be some European football on the calendar for Spurs, which will help him. But I think they've got a really talented player there. Alfie Devine's a bit more interesting. Maybe as Jamie Donley bumped ahead of him in the pecking order, going on his loan spell. But I think what we need to say is Alfie Devine, when he has played for Ange Postecoglou in pre-season, has been outstanding. He was in Summers 23 and he was last season as well. And Ange is a big fan of Alfie. I think it was last season he always mentioned like Dane and Alfie were the ones maybe like ahead of everyone else in terms of the academy. But like we said with Jamie, there's a couple of good players ahead of him in the pecking order, which makes it a challenge for him. But I think he's certainly got the attributes. He probably just needs a bit of luck in terms of getting that first Tottenham minutes under Ange Postecoglou and then go from there, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think Postecoglou does really have a bit of a kind of a soft spot for him. I think he's kind of played so well wherever he's played him. He hasn't had to be as versatile as Jamie Donley has, but he has played him on the wing and through the middle and various spots. And yeah, my only worry for Alfie is the cluttered nature of the position he's trying to get a role in for Spurs. And also his contract's only till 2027, I think. I'm sure there's probably like to be an option often there is with these youngsters, but I would be surprised if they don't give him another deal. I would think next season again for him is another loan. I think it'll be a new contract with a loan. And yeah, then it's all on kind of how he steps up, really. This Westerlo loan has been a big one for him. It's still obviously not the kind of top level of football that we kind of want to see him push towards and tested in, but it's a very good level of football. It's definitely an improvement on kind of what he's done before. It's a really difficult one. He kind of falls into that category of really talented, could well end up as a Premier League footballer, but I'm still not entirely sure whether it's going to be at Spurs or not, purely because every summer, they'll sign new players and they'll bring new players in those positions as well. And it just becomes even more and more difficult to kind of break through when you're at that kind of 20, 21-year-old category. He's 20, isn't he, Alfie? So, yeah, we'll see what the summer brings. If he has a third kind of successful season, I was trying to think, is he club trained? I think, he's been there long enough. I think he would be. I think he joined when he was 15, 16.
He joined summer of 2020 because he was playing in those lockdown fixtures, the pre-season friendlies when Mourinho was manager.
Yeah, so he'll be club trained, which I think will help, especially at a time when Spurs have so few of those. Thinking about that might make a difference, because even Postecoglou said the other day it's going to be a problem for a few years now, the club trained aspect. So he might decide, or whoever's in charge. Obviously, we're not going to be presumptuous, but we hope it's Postecoglou that next season maybe they need to keep one or two around for that squad.
If they're in
if
Europe.
they're in European competition, yes. There's a lot of ifs going on with Spurs right now. Yes, that's a big if. Yeah, that'll kind of define a lot of futures, I think, actually, whether they got European competition. Hopefully, it's through winning the Europa League and being in the Champions League. That would be lovely.
Yeah, I think with Alfie, I mean, this summer, next season might make or break his Spurs career. So I think if he goes out on loan for a third successive season, you're then thinking, when are you actually going to get that opportunity at Spurs? And like you mentioned, new players could come in. You maybe go down a place in the pecking order. As I said, I just think he needs that opportunity. But when's that opportunity for him going to come? Will Lankshear then seems to be doing okay at West Brom so far.
Yeah, I think his first start the other day wasn't as easy for him. I think they said that was a little bit probably the first kind of tough spot he's had, whereas the cameos he's had off the bench have been quite good. Yeah, I mean, Will's had a hell of a season. when you look at it from a kind of a young player perspective, to come into the team, make your Premier League debut, make your Europa League debut, score your first goal for the club, manage to get yourself sent off as well in the same match as well, which is all part of the experience as well. He's only 19, had a clamour of clubs, absolutely trying to get him in the winter window. They wanted him in the summer window as well. He's kind of quite a hot property right now. Another one kind of that I think I do wonder whether there's another loan next season for him. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I just think at 19 years old, I think he just needs to become a goal scorer at that level and make it difficult to kind of for Spurs to even look elsewhere for him. But yeah, I think probably another loan, but I definitely think long term there's certainly a future for him if he continues to progress.
Yeah, I'm not sure on
Ooh.
Will, to be honest. I agree with you. I think maybe next season another loan move, but the thing is, you've got Dominic Solanke ahead of you. Maybe a new striker comes in the summer. Say if Richarlison ends up going, if Spurs decide, right,
Well, back to Everton.
hopefully that'll do. I'll be happy with that, because they might decide, well, we've not really seen the best of you in these 3 seasons because of the amount of injuries. So they might look at bringing a new striker in. But then, I mean, go back, 4 or 5 years, Troy Parrott was probably seen as Harry Kane's long-term successor, but then all of a sudden, it didn't take really long for Dane Scarlett maybe to jump ahead of Troy.
Yeah.
So it just shows how it is with the strikers at the club. Hopefully, it has a big opportunity at some point down the line at Spurs. Certainly got the talent to play up front, but I'm not sure. Just because they might look at bringing in a new striker next summer.
The only thing I would give him over the other players you've mentioned is his physical stature.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would say. I think he's just a slightly different player in terms of, I think he'll be able to handle the physical elements of the kind of Championship and Premier League a little bit better, perhaps. And look, Troy Parrott's smashing it right now. He's absolutely flying. 17 goals in the Eredivisie. 17 goals for RZ across all competitions. And yeah, I just feel like with Will, there's just that little bit more of a physical side to him. And I think he'll be able to hold up the ball as he gets better and better and more experienced. So, yeah, I'm giving him a little bit more time, but absolutely agree. It's been a very volatile kind of department, that the young strikers trying to break through. And they do kind of, I mean, as another player we'll talk about in a little bit, a certain young Argentine striker as well. It's very difficult for them to take that next step.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well talk about Alejo Veliz right now, since you mentioned him on loan at Espanyol. Not the easiest of loan spells this year for him. I mean, it was really difficult last year at Sevilla, thinking it was going to be a decent move for him, because at the time Sevilla were hovering around the relegation zone, needed a striker to come in and make an impact. But that move seemed like it was one the manager didn't want, and it was those that above him wanted to bring him in. Espanyol, he's been in and out of the team. Goals have been hard to come by. I think for him to have a Tottenham future, he needs to be scoring goals. And unfortunately, that's something he's not doing, and it didn't really happen for him in pre-season either. So I'd probably say I'd be leaning more towards no rather than yes in terms of having a long-term Tottenham career.
Yeah, I mean, it should state he's got a contract till 2029. He's got a long deal left. He is 21 now. And that's not to say that's an old man or anything, but when you've got the likes of Will is 19 and is really pushing him, and let's be honest, Will was the starring young striker in the summer. In the pre-season, Veliz just didn't really make any particular impact at all. I mean, even Dane struggled, I thought, in the summer on the whole as well, and had to go away and come back. So Veliz, he just needs something to go for him. At the moment, it's not looking promising, I would say. I think he's gone on a couple of loans that haven't. I mean, they'll have worked in terms of development for him, but I don't. Well, we've said it enough times. Strikers need to score goals. You need to go away and score goals if you're going to get any chance of coming back and getting into that first team setup really on a regular basis at that kind of level of football. And yeah, I just think for him, needs something drastic to happen in the next couple of months. Otherwise, it's another loan. And then I wonder if he'll just be one of those they end up constantly loaning out until they can maybe make their money back or a bit more on him, which is, I know it's such a cynical way of looking at it, but unfortunately, football, especially the Premier League, is littered with those kind of tales. And I'd love him to be more than that. But yeah, he just needs to show a little bit more, I think.
Two wingers now, Brian Hill and Manor Solomon. I think it's pretty straightforward for Brian. His move's just not worked out for him at Spurs. He's done well when he's been back on loan in Spain, and given how well he's done in his homeland, you think that's where his future is. And I mean, there's been a lot of talk back in Spain this over the past few months that Girona want to make his loan deal permanent, and I just don't think he has a future at Spurs. I just don't think he's a Premier League type player. I think he's more suited to La Liga, but he is a really good player there. I think it'll be one of these, later down the line when it's one of these, look what we had, and he's gone on and, flourished elsewhere. But these things happen. So I think for Brian, I think he's quite clear to see his future is away from Spurs. Manor Solomon, bit different. I don't know with Manor.
It's difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's one of these who you need to give him a chance in pre-season. He had minutes last summer, but he was just coming back from that really bad injury, which has limited his game time since he's been at Spurs. But just look how well he's done at Leeds. Confidence is flowing, getting goals and assists on a regular basis. What I would probably say is Leeds are in a really good place at the moment for promotion back to the Premier League. Now I think if they get there, they'll want to sign him on a permanent basis. And there's a really good relationship, I think, between Leeds and Spurs anyway. Look at the amount of loan deals they've done. Joe Rodon going to Leeds last summer, Archie Gray signing for Tottenham on a permanent basis. So there can be a deal done there. It'd be nice to see him have another go at Spurs because Tottenham's wingers haven't always, set the world alight. But I'd probably say if Leeds go up, his permanent home might be at Ellen Road.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of the above. I think Brian, 4 years on now almost. I don't think it's going to happen at this point. 24 years old. It's kind of, at the time, his loan was a straight loan, and neither club had recorded anything other than that. Although there's been some suggestions, I think, that maybe there was a clause inserted in his contract or something at the time about an option. It's all a bit muddled with Brian. Either way, I think it looks like, a return to... He's always looked more comfortable in Spain. I do wonder if there's a sliding doors moment when maybe he could have gone to Brighton on loan and whether that had made any difference to kind of what happened with him. But no, I would imagine... I think he's only got a year left in his deal. I'm sure they've probably got an option to extend it, but I don't think there's long left. So yeah, Brian, I can imagine that will be him, kind of his time at Spurs coming to an end. And with Manor Solomon, it's you look at him and you think you could have really done with him this season the way he's been playing. He's been that good. He's absolutely flying really in terms of his. I mean, what is it? I've got it here: 7 goals and 8 assists, which like you could. I know obviously Premier League's a different level, but he definitely would have made an impact. I just kind of feel like maybe Postecoglou hasn't been entirely convinced by him, and I agree. And I know he had injury problems, so you didn't really see the best of him in the summer either when he was kind of coming back. I agree with you. I think if Leeds go up, I think he's maybe found a bit of a home there, and it's one of those situations where he was bought on a free transfer. I know there's been issues around that as well in itself, but I think if Leeds were to come up, make a good bid for him, I think he would probably want to stay because he seems happy there, and I think Spurs would probably take the money.
Yeah, we're halfway through the pod now and probably about halfway through the large group of loan players. So it's time for Ali to sell the benefits of using our sponsor, NordVPN.
Yes, well, if you happen to be on loan somewhere in Belgium or Spain or anywhere like that, you might want to use NordVPN to access things back at home, or even if you're just on holiday rather than on a loan, because NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, and it means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. It is something I have used on countless occasions when I've headed abroad, not on loan, unfortunately, because I've never had that level of footballing ability, more just on holidays and being able to watch everything I wanted to watch from back home in any little moments when you get the chance to do that. But also when you're back in the UK, you can switch your device to thinking it's in a foreign country and use it to book things, whether that be flights, hotels, concert tickets, whatever it might be, or even watching shows from streaming services from other countries. We've had many people tell us that they've signed up and it's been great for them, and that's always wonderful to hear because we wouldn't be promoting it if we didn't believe in it. And on top of all of that, if that's not all enough, to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest, and a link will give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. There's no risks with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And in case you missed it just then, the link is in the podcast episode description box.
You'll have to have a word with Wilma, see if you can get a loan move. Gazzetta dello Sport, somewhere like that.
Football.Girona. Yeah, could get a loan somewhere else.
Right, we'll move on to a couple of defenders now. Ashley Phillips and Alfie Dorrington. Ashley Phillips had a really good loan spell second half of last season at Plymouth. Doing really well at Stoke City now. I think they're raving about him, putting in some big performances for Mark Robins' side. I don't know with Ashley Phillips because given Tottenham's situation at the turn of the year in terms of a lack of defenders, you're just thinking, just recall him rather than playing Archie Gray, a midfielder, at centre-back. But that didn't happen. And the thing is now you're going to have Luca Vuskovic coming in. Maybe there's going to be another defender coming in the summer because I'd probably say there'll be question marks over what happens with Christian Romero, given there's been talk of him maybe going to Real Madrid, somewhere else. So I'm not sure with Ashley Phillips. I think probably another year out on loan. But then again, if you're out for a third year, when are you actually going to get this chance at Spurs? And Alfie Dorrington, I'd probably say no rather than just because, like, same with Ashley Phillips. Vuskovic is going to be ahead of him. And there was this point at the turn of the year when there was no centre-backs, and you're thinking, if you're ever going to play for Spurs, this is going to be it. And because you've been overlooked for a midfielder to go play at centre-back or a full-back, you can probably see there might not actually be a future for me here at the club. But he's at Aberdeen at the moment. How's he doing?
Okay. 4 appearances. I think he made his full debut in the 4th one, and then after that was an unused sub. So it hasn't started amazingly, but there's a long road ahead from there. With those 2 players, I don't think enough respect has been placed upon the name of Ashley Phillips. I think as an 18-year-old last season, 19-year-old this season, I don't think kind of people maybe have realised, not saying you, but outside of just in football circles, I don't think much has been made of the fact that he's been a teenager that has been a regular starter and a high-performing player on his loan moves. I think he's done really, really well, and I think every manager. I mean, Stoke, they've had 3 managers, haven't they, this season? And everyone has eventually turned to him, even if they didn't at the start, because he just is a terrific young defender. However, there definitely doesn't feel like Postecoglou rates him, or whether it's he doesn't believe he plays his style of football, I don't know. I would say he probably does have a future at Spurs, but it might be beyond the Postecoglou era, is maybe my thinking on that. It could be that maybe he's not got the required calmness with his feet. I don't know. When playing the ball under pressure, I don't know. It could be that side of it. But I think he's done incredibly well, and I think they would be mad to kind of let him go anywhere permanently anytime yet. But I do think Vuskovic absolutely is a bit of a kind of a problem for him, a spanner in the works when he comes back in the summer. And in terms of Alfie Dorrington, I think he needs his Jamie Donley moment. I think he needs to go somewhere and find that kind of sudden spurt of development. He's very highly rated within the academy. I've seen him have some terrific games. And I would say, when you're talking about him and Phillips, I would say that Dorrington's far better on the ball. I think in terms of the ability to drive with the ball at his feet as well. However, Phillips has got all of this experience, and I think he's a kind of a tough battling centre back as well, and maybe Alfie's got to kind of add that to his game. He's only had the experience of youth football. Obviously, he's actually is one up on Phillips because he's made his Premier League debut, isn't he, against Southampton?
Yes, he has.
Yeah,
matter of minutes that, wasn't it? But still, Premier League debut. Can't take it away from him.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of time towards the end of the game, wasn't it? Well, yeah, it's not like loads of time, but a little bit. Yeah, he just needs to go somewhere. I don't know whether it'll end up being this loan. It might be one next season. Got a deal till 2029 as well. So, yeah, I think it'll be the long game with him. And hopefully he makes it because there's a lot of talent there. But he has had his hamstring issues as well, which hopefully are behind him.
Yeah, moving on now to League One. Matthew Craig playing at Mansfield Town now. Excellent at Doncaster last season. They just quite didn't get there in terms of the playoffs. Failed in the semi-finals, but he jumped up a division in the summer, went to Barnsley. Started off really well, got in the team, and then for all of a sudden, it was like from November onwards, just didn't even feature. So he was one who was recalled and immediately sent out on loan to Mansfield. No, I can't see a future for Matthew Craig. I think his future probably is going to be in, League One, Championship maybe. But given how he did at Doncaster last season, how he's done before Barnsley and now Mansfield, there's going to be interested clubs in him. Yeah.
It feels utterly rubbish, doesn't it, to just say no? But unfortunately, it kind of just feels like it's the case. And it's mainly because he has, again, another one who made his Premier League debut, didn't he? Ryan Mason brought him on against Leeds. And I think it just would have happened by now, unfortunately, for him. He has had a really good couple of years. Got a back injury at the moment, or he had, which has stopped him kind of progressing since his debut for Mansfield. But yes, I would imagine that probably from next season onwards, his future lies elsewhere, and hopefully builds a good Football League career for himself.
Yep, dropping down to League Two now, George Abbott, Notts County. He's had a really, really good loan spell. I think probably one of these that's gone under the radar a bit, given the success stories of Manor Solomon, Jamie Donley, Josh Keeley. Yeah. He's playing a key role in their promotion bid to League One, playing in midfield. He's got some absolutely incredible goals as well. One away at Cheltenham, that volley at Accrington.
Yeah.
He, like Matthew Craig, made his debut at Leeds on the final day of the season in 23 when Ryan Mason was interim boss. I think George Abbott could maybe, like I said, be the one who goes under the radar and maybe, becomes a part of the Spurs team in the future. He's certainly got the qualities, but as I've said, it might be a case of he goes out on loan again next year, steps up, whether that's League One or to the Championship. But I think there's a really good player there. And fingers crossed, George will get an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, he's still only 19. He's very versatile. In the last kind of couple of seasons, people within the academy have constantly told me, just keep an eye on George Abbott. I just think he's going to be one that's going to go under the radar a little bit. Excuse me. And he has, and he's just flying now for them. 4 goals, 4 assists, 28 appearances. Like you say, a couple of really eye-catching goals as well. And I hope he gets a decent little chance in pre-season, get some minutes, get a chance to kind of show what he can do, because there's a real player in there. I agree. I think probably another loan beckons. I think he's only got a couple of years left on his contract, potentially. I think it is. Again, there's always usually an option with the young players, but I would imagine he'll probably get a new contract after his efforts this season, and hopefully get him out on a loan a little bit higher. And yeah, down the line, who knows? Again, another club trained academy product. Might just be just a little bit something about him that I really like, and hopefully we'll see it in a Spurs shirt eventually.
Yep, final player, Luca Gunter, who's at Wilston in the National League. I think this is one very similar to Josh Keeley. There's players ahead of him. Maybe it follows the same path as Brandon Austin and Alfie Whiteman in terms of if he stays at the club, maybe he's going to be third or fourth choice. It's just hard to see these academy players, the goalkeepers, breaking in to the first team and playing regularly, because look at Brandon and look at Alfie. It's not happened for them, unfortunately. And when you've got goalkeepers like Guglielmo Vicario and Antonin Kinski ahead of you, it's always going to be difficult. But I think for Luca and for a lot of the loanees, they've got time on the side because of their age. But you're battling for one position in goal. It's just hard to see where those opportunities are going to come from.
Yeah, I would say he's a bit different to Josh Keeley for me. I think, and it's purely on the homegrown angle, because I think he's got a deal till 2029. And I think we've seen with Brandon Austin, I think patience with the goalkeepers maybe can be a virtue eventually. I think he'll hopefully get a couple of loans, which he needs. But I actually kind of feel like with him, with the club trained aspect on his side, which I think he'll have, I'm pretty sure he'll have. He's been here for quite a couple of years, I think. Yeah, pretty sure he makes it. Yeah, of course he will. And then, yeah, I think if you further down the line, he's only 19 years old, 2 or 3 years' time. We don't know what's happened with those 3. I think it's a little bit different for him because you can include him in the Europa League squads or Champions League, hopefully by then. And yeah, very talented shot stopper. And there's quite a bit about him as well in terms of, I think longevity and patience might be the key for him. But I do think it's a slightly different situation to Josh Keeley.
Yep. So that's all the loan players done now.
Yeah, we rapid with them, didn't we?
Yeah, plenty there. Some probably will have a future at Spurs, others may not, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with them? I think that's the good thing. There's some could surprise you, some maybe not, but players will have to keep an eye on in the future and see what happens. Right, moving on to Saturday's Premier League game away at Ipswich Town. Chance for Tottenham to make it 3 wins on the spin in the Premier League, build up some real momentum, and hopefully cut down that 7-point gap between themselves in 12th at the moment and Brighton in 10th. I think given Man City on the agenda next Wednesday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, returning players coming back, surely this is an opportunity for Ange to rotate his team and give some of those players a breather.
It's difficult, isn't it? In practice, yes, but in the other aspect, you've got a bit of momentum with a team that's won a game. Do you stick with that team? I'm really torn. Every time I go to kind of do like an early predicted team or anything, I keep changing it because there is a part of me that thinks, okay, well, yeah, you've got to think about the City game as well, and maybe Jed comes out of it and Destiny Doggy gets a start there and gets to start building his minutes up again. And there's another part of me that thinks, but Jed's been playing so well. And you kind of like, do you want to really take him out of that momentum? It's so difficult. I mean, there's a question for you. Does Brennan Johnson come in? Do you bring Brennan in to start because he does like Brennan Johnson?
Yeah, I think Brennan would be one of those who I bring into the team. I think you've just got to increase the minutes, and that's what Ange said. I think it was ahead of last weekend. By the time the Man City game comes around, those returning players, he wants them to play significant minutes. So I think for Brennan, he comes in and starts. Wilson Odebear, bit more difficult just because his injury layoff, the amount of time. I don't think he'll start. I think he'll come on. But I think there does need to be a bit of change in the attack because I think Decky needs a rest. I think it's the ideal opportunity to rest Son. Because looking at the amount of football he's played this season, I think he's played 34 games for Spurs, started 30 times. I mean, go back to start of September, you're looking at Europa League, perfect opportunity to rest your regulars, give those on the periphery of the starting 11 a chance in the team. But that has just not quite happened. Son's started 6 of his 6 appearances in the Europa League. Got to mention that 2 of those have been against Elfsborg and Galatasaray, where he has been brought off at the break, just to ensure you're not pushing him too much. But there's just not been an opportunity really to give him a bit of a rest, and I think that might be maybe key in terms of helping him get back towards his best. Just taking him out of the team for a game, see what that does for him. But at least there's options there now for Spurs. It's not like go back 2-3 weeks ago when players are playing 90 minutes and all of a sudden they've then got to play another 90 minutes 3 or 4 days later. You can at least alternate now with the players.
Can you rest Sonny and Kulusevski though?
No, I think it'd be only one of them.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can pre-plan substitutions. Actually, we'll put Odebear on at halftime for Son because you just don't know how a game's going to plan out. But I think there's going to be chance to, rotate them, whether it's Sonny starts and comes off after 70 minutes. Who knows? Yeah.
And also, you're kind of managing Maddison a little bit back into the team as well. There's another one there. You kind of, after the weekend's performance, you kind of want to. What did he get? An hour, wasn't it? Just over an hour.
Yeah.
You probably want to give him roughly similar to that. They do have an extra day on City, which is a rarity in that they'll. Trying to remember who got City's big game, isn't it? The weekend. It's
City have got Liverpool at home Sunday in the half-4 game. Yeah.
Yes, I knew it was a big game. I just forgot entirely who it was against. So you would hope that extra day will play a part for Spurs in a positive sense for a change. Where else would you bring Archie Gray in? Anywhere?
Yeah, well, I did a piece this morning on potential changes, and Archie Gray was one of them. It's just a question of whether he comes in at centre back, or do you maybe play him at right back in place of Pedro Porro, and then Destiny Udogie takes Jed Spence's place at left back, just in terms of managing the minutes. But what I would say with Archie, let's just wait and see what Ange says on Kevin Danzo first, because he got a knock last time out against Manchester United. But maybe at centre back, maybe at right back, but I think there's probably more chance of him playing at centre back, to be fair.
I wonder that. It was his knee, Dan, so I wonder if they just say, let's kind of give you a little bit extra to kind of get over that, and Archie Gray comes in there. I can definitely see the logic of having 2 fresh sets of fullbacks for each game. I can see that entirely. Who was it used to do that? Was it Conte? Someone used to, whenever there was a midweek game, would essentially play with 2 different sets of. I know Poch would occasionally do it back in the day as well, because they're quite demanding positions, fullbacks. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd love to see Gray in midfield at some point. But I would be surprised if he doesn't have some kind of role to play at the weekend. But yeah, and then there's a midfield. Does Basuma come in? Does Bentancur stay there? Does Bergvall keep his place? Does Sarr come in? That's the one area where there's so many different combinations. And as we've said before, we still don't entirely know what the best one is. And I don't know if Postecoglou does either.
No, I don't think he does. And I think we probably will see a lot of different combinations between now and May. It might be a case of trying to find out that best combination so it's ready to go from the start of next season. But Benteke has played a lot of football recently since he's come back, so there might be an opportunity there for Yves Bissouma maybe to take his place. And again, Ange said after the Manchester United game, Benteke was another one who had a knock. So maybe he comes out the team.
And Sonny, actually, wasn't it? It was Sonny was the other one.
Yeah, and I can see Papsar coming into the team, maybe instead of Lucas Bergvall, because I know Spurs have had, 2-3 midweeks over this past fortnight, but the games are going to start ramping up from next week onwards, because Man City next Wednesday, then the following Thursday, and the following Thursday after that, back in Europa League action. So I think this game against Ipswich probably is the ideal game to rotate, but you just don't want to do too many changes.
Yeah, I mean, they do benefit. I hate to use the word benefit, because you'd be rather playing an FA Cup game, but obviously there's the weekend off coming up, isn't there? So the first leg of the Europa League does have that week before it. But yeah, I think he'll change a few things. And as I think we said before, I think there'll be uproar at various ones, because there's a line of thinking of you should never change a winning team. But then also that team, they've had so many months where they've just had a knackered team playing over and over and over and over again. If you've got the chance to rotate it without affecting the level of the team, I think you've got to take it now. And yeah, two very different matches as well, which probably need two very different starting 11s anyway, regardless of rotation.
Yeah, going to be a tough game. Ipswich come into the game. They've only won 3 times in the Premier League this season. The first one of those was against Spurs at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in November.
I remember, thanks.
Beating Chelsea at home, won away at Wolves. Got a good point at Aston Villa last time around. They're battling to, keep the place in the top flight after so long away. And I think I was just looking at the previous results against Ipswich. I think Spurs lost both games 2001-2002 season. Ipswich previous season in the Premier League prior to coming back up for this campaign. So Spurs haven't beaten for quite a long time in the league. So they need to make sure to do that this weekend. But as I said, going to be a tough one and a test, but certainly an opportunity there to build some momentum and hopefully go into that Man City game 3 wins on the spin.
That would be nice. And we've got the Europa League draw as well tomorrow.
We do. Friday midday, taking place at the House of Football in Nyon in Switzerland. Tottenham can play one of 4 teams. There's Real Sociedad, Midtjylland in Denmark, AZ Alkmaar and Galatasaray. AZ 4-1 lead, taking to Istanbul today. You'd think they'll go through. Then Sociedad leading 2-1 after winning in Denmark last week. They're on home soil. So I'd imagine they go through as well. So we'll be bringing you the draw on football.london. I think I'm going to be doing the live blog as you'll be at Hotspur Way for Ange's press conference. But a bit different this Europa League draw because it's the last one of the season, because now, given the new format, we're operating with a bracket system. So it's going to be like the Euros, the World Cup, where you can map out your route to the final. So Spurs and Manchester United will play one of those 4 teams I mentioned. I think you said AZ you'd prefer, but in terms of going somewhere new, a trip to San Sebastian.
Well, I think for the fans, rather for myself, I think that's probably, with no disrespect to anywhere in the Netherlands, which is a beautiful country, but San Sebastian, certainly from your travel reports on being there, it seems and sounds lovely. Just out of interest, you call your house the House of European Football, don't you?
World football.
World football, global football. Yeah, it's we'll see what tonight brings with the rest of the two second legs, but yeah, it's an interesting one, and the way the draw is kind of set up, it would be the potential of a Spurs Man U final if everyone got through their various legs, which is by no means guaranteed whatsoever. But it'd be just wonderful if this season has been an absolute grind for everyone involved with Spurs, not least the fans, if it were to end in something really special, just to kind of completely offset everything that's happened so far. But but let's start with a draw first. There's a long way to go.
There is. I think we'll leave that there for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back next week to reflect on the Ipswich game and probably also discuss the Europa League draw as well. So in the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.